Today we're taking the 2022 Mazda CX-5 on an adventure. That's coming up right now on Driving Sports TV. A couple years ago, we did a full review of the Mazda CX-5, and for 2022, there's not a lot different. Sure, the wheel arches are now painted and the suspension's been softened up a little bit, but overall, it's the same vehicle. So today, we're not doing the same review. We've already done that. Instead, we're taking this on an adventure, because not only does this have all-wheel drive, it also has a trail mode, and we're gonna put that to the test. Under the hood is a 2.5-liter four-cylinder Mazda Skyactiv-G engine. Now this does run on regular fuel, and it will produce up to 227 horsepower and 310 pound-feet of torque. It is connected through a 6-speed sport shift automatic transmission, and it powers all four wheels with Mazda's all-wheel drive system that is enhanced with both a sport and an off-road mode. EPA rates this setup at 22 miles to the gallon in town and 27 on the highway. First, we're going to try a 0 to 60 just to kick things off. This engine now has 6 more horsepower compared to the outgoing model. So I'm going to go ahead and put it into sport, into drive. 3, 2, 1, and go. Okay, 40, 50, and 60. 6.27 seconds, which is actually faster than the last time we tested the CX-5 a few years ago. That one I think did 6.8 and some change. So they did give this 6 more horsepower, and in the process they also reworked the transmission. So clearly it is a little quicker in the 0 to 60 game. Does that really matter? Not really. It's pretty close to the outgoing model. Now, one of the nice things about the CX-5 is really just how well it drives on pavement. The independent rear suspension really allows for great handling, something you just don't really get that consistently in this category. Yeah, put the throttle down and that 2.5 liter, oh, it sounds so good. So while the CX-5 is an older design, it does have a multi-link rear end that allows for great handling. On the downside, it does invade the interior, and it prevents the back row from having as much space as it could have. Now the new CX-50 kind of fixes that in a way, in that it does have more second row legroom, but they did that by putting a torsion beam in, which is less complicated, but also not as good in terms of handling. Throttle in, power comes on. Now most of the power does feel like it's going through the front wheels. It's not like some other makers where you get a lot of power to the back. No, this one, it definitely feels like a front wheel drive car with a little bit of a rear assist. It's not very aggressive at shifting that power backwards. So the all-wheel drive system in this vehicle does use a clutch in the middle, and it will use individual wheel braking to help prevent slipping. But beyond that, it also uses wheel braking to neutralize handling. So as I go into a corner, it'll actually brake the inside front wheel to help guide the vehicle around. If I'm in a trail situation, it can use that same braking tech to redirect power from a spinning wheel back into the system, presumably to a wheel with grip. Mazda's so-called MI drive is a system for optimizing the powertrain for various conditions. In sport mode, it'll hold that gear longer, and then as I slow down, it'll be more aggressive in downshifting as well. If I'm in normal mode, it kind of is just a nice blend. The steering wheel loosens up a little bit, and the throttle becomes a little bit more subdued. And then there's off-road mode, which optimizes the system for off-road conditions. We'll dip into that once we head into the forest. Mazda loves to talk about how their infotainment system requires very little attention to operate. However, my experience is the exact opposite, because you have to click and toggle to go to everything. If you own a Mazda and you like this system, I'm not going to take that away from you. However, compared to other vehicles, especially in the class, this is one of my least favorite systems. And it's mostly because it requires so much attention just to do basic functions, which is kind of absurd considering that Mazda touts how little input you need to do. Yes, that might be true if you have everything absolutely memorized. 3 clicks down, 1 click on, 3 clicks over. It's absurd. So, do not like that system. I do not like it at all. One thing that a lot of people do not think about is that just to get to the trails, you usually have to travel down highways and freeways. So making the most of that leg of the adventure is really what the CX-5 is all about. This is where this vehicle excels. However, it does have a trail mode, so we would be remiss not to test that. In a previous review, we went along a rock trail into the mountains to see how well it shifted power around. Well, today it's going to be a little bit more about the suspension and the overall package. So today we're going to head into the forest to see how well this whole package kind of works together on a typical journey for a light-duty crossover. So let's head off into the woods and see how this does. So on today's adventure, we're going to see less rock crawling and more rally-style driving, because this is a forest road which is used predominantly for logging. So I expect it to actually be pretty smooth. And considering I have all-season radials, I'm going to be slipping around a little bit. Now, this all-wheel drive system should help push me through corners. However, it does feel like a front-wheel drive vehicle, and that kind of limits the amount of fun we can have. In normal drive mode, it clamps down on the fun pretty quickly. Let's throttle through the corner here and see how well it catches us. Yeah, it doesn't really want us to get too sideways. Now let's go ahead and switch to sport mode and see if we get a little bit more sideways action. Throttle in. That's still a lot of push. How about off-road? Does that give us a little bit more sideways action? Ooh, I think it does. Now I have to be careful. Oh yeah, it definitely lets that tail get out a little bit more. I like off-road mode. It also seems to be more aggressive at pushing power to the back. So, like a typical forest road in Washington State, this is a little potholey, but it's mostly pretty smooth. As we saw in that last test, when we switch between the different modes on the gravel here, off-road mode replaces traction control in a way, because you used to have a button down here on the CX-5 and it was traction control off. When you turn that off, it put it into a special trail mode. Well, now that we have trail mode in the MI drive modes, they've removed the traction control button altogether. So in a way, off-road mode is the traction control off mode, which is, I think, really a better way of doing it. It always really frustrated me to have a secret mode. And then everybody on YouTube's now like, because Mazda for a few years had a special off-road mode hidden in their traction off, now everybody thinks there's some secret off-road mode on every single vehicle we test. No, in a Hyundai, you do not turn off the traction control to get a special off-road mode. It turns off all the brake vectoring, which is counterproductive for off-road driving. So the suspension's actually pretty good here. I've always found the CX-5 to be a little on the tight side, and I don't know what they did this year, but it actually is doing a pretty good job soaking up the irregularities of this forest road. And keeping in mind, this is a very smooth gravel road. Normally, we go along things that are more like bouldery with large rocks or just completely riddled with potholes. This is pretty basic. Let's try a test. I want to see if I can get the back end to hang out in off-road mode. Does it remove enough traction that I can do a hairpin turn with it? So let's give this a try and find out. Full throttle. I'm then gonna basically kick it over and in, and boom, throttle, and no, no, it destroys any fun that I want to have. Let's see if I can do it a little bit angrier. If I can kick it around faster, I might have a better opportunity here. So let's go ahead and we'll just rewind by driving backwards. Gonna reset that again. Let's do it again. Now I'm keeping the vehicle in off-road mode because I have no traction control button on the 2022 model. Okay, now I'm just gonna start, get it up to about 20 miles an hour, kick it over, and do a full throttle. Let's do it. And kick it. Come on, I'm full throttle. It is not kicking power back there. Okay, I got one more technique to try here. I want to see if I can be more gradual in the turn. Already turning angry is not working. So this time I'm just going to ease into the corner and throttle in and see what that does. Okay, and now I'm going to ease in and throttle in. Yeah, it does kick that back out just a little bit. Okay. If really all you're doing is a more intentional throttle in with a tight turn in, you're gonna have more success getting that back to rotate. Now, it never really does become a full rotation. It just pushes a little more power to the back. So I'm gonna try that again just to make sure that that technique actually works and it wasn't just a fluke. So I'm gonna be in drive and I'm just gonna ease into the throttle as I floor it in. Yes, that worked. I actually tapped the brake just a little bit to shift the weight forward so it would loosen the back, and then I throttled and I had a little bit of a skid there. Just a little bit. Okay, now let's head back on through the forest and see where this goes. One thing about not being here in over a decade, I have no idea what changes they've made to this road. Okay, this is different. I used to go straight. I guess now I zigzag left. And one more corner and, oh man. Well, this is really disappointing, but that's okay. We got a plan B. We're gonna take this up to the same off-road location that we tested the Toyota RAV4 TRD off-road to see how well this trail system works. As we're heading to the next location, we did have to pop onto the highway here, which gives an opportunity to test out the adaptive cruise control system. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it on. I'll click set, and then I can pick my pace, and it will pace the vehicle in front of me. Now I can adjust this up to 4 different gapping distances. We'll set the target. I kind of like how the digital gauge cluster represents that. And now we're following the vehicle in front of us. If it should accelerate, it'll bring us up to our peak speed, whatever I've set in the gauge cluster. And as he decelerates with the brake, it'll apply brake accordingly, just basically like all systems. This one does have lane detection, but it does not have lane centering, which puts it behind the curve of other vehicles in this class. I mean, the CX-5, even though it's been revised and massaged here and there since it was first introduced, it really hasn't fundamentally changed much. This is an older architecture, and little things like this kind of indicate that. So at this point, if I were to take my hands off the wheel, I will just drive right off the road, and it'll just notify me that, yes, you just drove over the lane and you're about to go off a cliff. So we don't want to do that. I'm going to keep my hands on the wheel as I should. And onward to the next test. Even though this CX-5 is not designed for extreme off-roading, it does have a trail mode, and I want to see how well that works. So this is a little course that we've been using kind of in the off-season here to try and shuffle power around on the system. So this poses a few different issues. The concern here is, of course, clearance. Clearance is an issue. I'm going to stay to the right as much as possible so I don't hit the rocker panel. And we're just going to roll into this. So first off, I am going to put it into off-road mode. So we should be able to see a little wheel spin. And we'll see how the individual wheel braking takes care of the situation. Oh, this does have a trail camera. It uses the 360 camera, so I can turn that on. And then I can switch to wheel view so I can exactly see how well we're fitting into this climb, because there's actually a big boulder on the left that I really want to watch out for. But I don't like that view's a little distorted. I think we're going to go with the straight up view. And this even shows forward facing tracks. So hopefully we can shift. Ooh, wow. That's really shifting power around. I have to be really careful that I don't yeet right into a rock. So I'm being very careful. And you might say, oh, he's stopping moving as soon as he gets momentum. No, the whole thing is I don't want to lurch forward. So I need to ease off the throttle. And sometimes that does look like I'm stopping, when in fact it's just trying to be extra cautious about protecting the nose. Come on. Wow, that actually does allow for a ton of wheel spin. Maybe we should turn off off-road mode. Now I'm in normal mode. Let's see what that does. No, normal mode doesn't seem to do anything good here. Okay, we're going to go back to trail mode. Momentum is key. And forward we go, without damaging the vehicle, hopefully. I want to try to stay to the right. Come on. Can you do this? Can you? Oh. Four-wheel drive system, high load. It does not like this. Let's take a look at what our situation's looking like here. A little concerned. Ooh, that's real close. We could clear it if it could actually do what we're asking here, but it's having a real issue shuffling that power around to the back. So I think we're gonna have to call it quits here, because I'm not getting a controlled climb. I'm getting little surges, and then it also just cut out on me. So for Driving Sports TV, I'm Ryan Douthit. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, share videos. We make them for you, and I hope you enjoy them. Now to get this off the climb.